For more than a decade, there was this one aircraft that totally changed the game for long-haul travel. I'm talking about the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. It was known for its incredible tech and, most importantly, a perfect safety record. But then, on one tragic day in 2025, everything changed. That perfect record was shattered. Today, we're looking at the story of Air India Flight 171.
You have to understand, since this plane first started flying passengers back in 2011, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner flew millions of people, millions and millions of miles, without a single fatal crash. I mean, by any measure you can think of, it was one of the absolute safest planes in the sky.
Until it wasn't. All of that changed in a single, terrifying instant. The crash sent, and this is no exaggeration, massive shockwaves through the entire aviation world, and it raised some really tough questions that investigators are now scrambling to answer.
All right, so let's set the scene. The date is June 12, 2025. The place? Ahmedabad, India. For everyone on board Air India Flight 171, this was supposed to be just another routine flight. But for the rest of the world, this day would go down in history as the day the Dreamliner's perfect run came to a tragic end.
So, here are the basics. Flight AI-171 was headed for London Gatwick, but just moments after lifting off the runway, something went horribly wrong. The plane only made it to about 625 feet before its wings just lost lift. It was a catastrophic stall, and from there, it just fell out of the sky, crashing right into a neighborhood called Meghaninagar.
And the human cost, it's just devastating. You had 230 passengers and 12 crew members on that plane. In the end, 241 people didn't survive.
But the tragedy didn't stop there. The wreckage, it crashed directly into a medical college hostel. At least 39 people on the ground lost their lives, and dozens more were injured. Just an unimaginable disaster.
But, in the middle of all this unimaginable loss, there was just one astonishing story. A single glimmer of hope. A passenger, a British man named Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, somehow, miraculously survived. He literally walked away from the wreckage with only minor injuries. It's just unbelievable.
So you see, this wasn't just any crash. This was the one that broke that perfect record. It absolutely rocked the confidence of the entire aviation world in what was supposed to be a flagship, state-of-the-art aircraft. And to really get why this is such a huge deal, we need to take a quick look back at the Dreamliner's history. Okay, so to really feel the shock of this, let's put it in context. The Dreamliner started flying in 2011. Now, it did have a bit of a hiccup early on, back in 2013, with some battery issues that grounded the whole fleet, but, and this is the key part, nobody was ever hurt. After that, for more than a decade, it had a flawless record, not a single fatal accident, until this one.
And that leads us to the billion-dollar question, right? The one that investigators, airlines, and frankly, all of us are asking. How on earth does one of the world's most advanced, safest planes just fall out of the sky moments after takeoff?
Well, that question is exactly what kicked off the massive investigation that started almost immediately.
The main agency in charge is India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, the AIIB, but this is a huge global effort. They've got help from the UK and the US, and of course the manufacturers, Boeing and GE, are involved. But the most important thing, they found both of the flight recorders. The so-called black boxes. That's the key piece of evidence right there.
Okay, before we get into the first big clue they found, we need to talk about a specific piece of tech. It's called the ram air turbine, or RAT for short. The easiest way to think about it is like a little emergency windmill. It drops out of the plane's body to generate just enough power for the most essential systems. But only if, and I mean only if, all the main power sources have failed. It is the absolute last resort.
And that brings us to the first huge clue. Videos taken from the ground actually showed that the RAT was deployed on this flight. Now, for investigators, that points to a truly terrifying scenario. A complete, total, catastrophic power failure from both engines right after takeoff. And for a plane like the Dreamliner, which is a more electric aircraft, meaning it relies heavily on its electrical systems, that is the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen.
So a clue like that, it immediately makes you ask bigger questions. This isn't just about this one single plane anymore. Now you have to look at the entire fleet, and you've got to ask, what's going on with the airline's maintenance? Now, when you look at the paperwork for this specific aircraft, everything seems fine. The right engine was brand new, installed just a few months before the crash, and the left one was serviced back in 2023. So that immediately makes investigators look beyond this one plane and start scrutinizing the airline's operations as a whole.
And, well, what do you know? When India's aviation regulator, that's the DGCA, did a wider review of the whole Dreamliner fleet, they found something interesting. They said there were no major safety flaws, but they did flag some systemic problems. Things like delays in getting spare parts and delays in inspecting emergency equipment. That definitely sounds like a potential clue, right?
So, with all these little clues starting to add up, the big question is, what happens now? What are the next steps in this hunt for answers?
Well, the road ahead is pretty clear and methodical. First things first, they're going to decode those black boxes. That will tell them what the pilots were saying and give them a second-by-second breakdown of what the plane was doing. At the same time, those fleet-wide inspections are going to wrap up. We should see a preliminary report with their first findings sometime around late September 2025. And from there, we'll probably see new safety recommendations for pretty much everyone, airlines and manufacturers all over the world.
And that really leaves us with the biggest question of all. You know, every major air disaster, as absolutely tragic as they are, always forces the industry to learn, to get better, to evolve. So the investigation into Flight 171, it isn't just about finding out what happened on this one flight. It's about finding lessons that are going to rewrite safety rules and protect every single person who gets on a plane for years to come. The future of air travel, in a very real way, could depend on the answers they find.